On this episode of the Clip Service podcast, Roland, Roland and I talked about the new acquisitions to the Clippers. Chris Paul being the highlight of that. The point guard is back in LA. We are all happy about it. Talked a little bit about the press conference that he did. It talked about Beal, the addition of Beal, the addition of John Collins and Brook Lopez. Obviously, Norman Powell and Amir Coffey are the big losses for the Clippers. We wish nothing but the best for those guys. But we just talked about the current iteration of the Clippers team going into the 2025-26 season, and then we covered a lot of ground on the situation, the scandal, as it were, with the Clippers involving Steve Ballmer and the fraudulent company Aspiration and Kawhi Leonard's involvement and all that. An unfortunate turn of events for the Clippers, and we break it all down on this episode. So, without further ado, let's make it happen.
What's up, Clipper Nation? And welcome to the Clip Service Podcast. Make sure to find us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Deezer, Amazon Music, and YouTube. And you can also find us on Twitter and Instagram at Clip Service Pod. I'm Rola, and this is my co-host, Nick. Let's get right into it.
Did you guys miss us? Sorry, we were away for a while. We did a little hiatus. Everybody's been busy. It's been a busy summer, but we hope that that you folks out there listening had a great summer. There's been a lot of things that have gone down, specifically recently, in the Clipper world. Last time we talked, I believe that I can't remember what the last thing that we talked about was, but I think that there were a lot of acquisitions to cover. One of which being one that is very close to Rola, near and dear to Rola in my heart. Chris Paul is a Clipper again. This is something that's kind of like, I think that Clipper fans, obviously Rola and myself included, have been, like, in the back of their minds kind of hoping for. I think, obviously Chris Paul was the leader of the Lob City squad that really, like, brought a lot of attention to, the Clippers and kind of put the Clippers on the map. And, a lot of people were fans because of, Blake and Chris and DJ and, that era of Clipper basketball. So Chris Paul is back on I believe it's a one-year deal because as far as I know, Chris Paul is finishing his career with the Clippers this year, and I believe he will be retiring after this. So just a hell of a career from Chris. It's really, really great to see him back. Me and my brother actually went to the press conference that they held at Intuit Dome, and it was a really cool environment. Obviously, like, diehard Clipper fans there. For those of you that didn't see the video, Chris Paul comes out. Brian Seaman introduces Chris Paul. He comes out. CP3 chants begin, and Chris Paul starts getting emotional. It was just such a cool moment, and it was just it felt surreal because so much has happened with this organization since Chris Paul was last on the team. Obviously, I think 2016 was when he left. Since then, obviously, we've had the 2-1-3 era. The Clippers got a new stadium. The Clippers went to the Western Conference Finals for the first time. So a lot's happened since he's been gone. And now to have him back and be inserted into this current iteration of the Clippers, it's really cool. And, I'm of the belief that, this new stadium and all this stuff wouldn't have happened without the contributions that Chris and Blake and that Lob City era team made. They, like I said, they really put the Clippers on the map.
Yeah.
And, so I think it's just very cool. And it was cool to hear him talk so candidly about, what it means to him to be back in a Clippers uniform and how he's changed as a player, especially at this point in his career, being 40, what is he, 41, 40? No, he's 40. LeBron's 41, I believe.
He's 40 years old?
I think Chris is 40. He's getting up there. I mean, in terms of basketball, in the basketball terms. It was really cool to kind of just hear him talk about how he, he's really happy to be here. He's prioritizing, being home and being back in a place where, he was really, had his best years, in my opinion. And he gets to be close to family. And his son was there. It was a trip to see, because I remember back when Chris was a Clipper and his son, Chris, was sitting in on press conferences. He was like a child. And now he's like this young man. Like
he's so old now.
It's crazy. It makes me feel old, but just a really awesome thing. I'm stoked. I'm so stoked to be able to see him. I mean, he's probably my favorite player ever. Definitely my favorite Clipper ever. So it's really an important moment for me and for a lot of Clipper fans. I know Rola can say the same. But Rola, what's your take on having Chris back? I mean, I know it's going to be a bench role, most likely.
Yeah,
it'll be a lot different than the Chris that we're used to. But
yeah, definitely. It kind of brings back a lot of memories, and like genuinely being a Clippers fan, it makes me like really happy because I do believe that Blake Griffin and Chris Paul are the two players that need their jerseys retired at Intuit Dome. For me, I think Blake Griffin has got to be number one, and then following Blake Griffin is Chris Paul. And what they both did for the Clippers franchise. I don't think that we are the name, the Clippers. I don't think that the Clippers are in Los Angeles without those two players, without Chris Paul and Blake Griffin. So to kind of have Chris Paul back on the Clippers to kind of close out his career, he was he started his career in New Orleans, and to really choose the Clippers as his like true home, kind of makes me feel good, dude. It makes me feel like this is a franchise that a legendary player like Chris Paul like calls his home, calls like somewhere that he wants to end his career at, and felt like somewhere where he could feel like a warm embrace on his final run in the NBA. So that feels pretty good as a fan. I will be going to, out here in Arizona, we'll be going to the Clippers games out here, and be trying to catch as many games out in LA as I can, just to see Chris Paul, someone that I've had a jersey for years, kind of wearing it, being a huge fan, seeing what he's done for us in the playoffs, and kind of really repping the Los Angeles Clippers. So. That's pretty awesome to see. I mean, like you were saying about Lil Chris P, it's just, dude, I was watching like his basketball highlights like randomly on Instagram one day.
It's so wild to see.
Didn't even know it was him until it was like, it said like Chris Paul, like balling or some shit like that. And I was like, Chris Paul? And then it like dawned on me that I was like, hey, that was his son.
Yep.
I was like, holy shit, he's old as fuck. Now it makes me feel so old, dude, because I remember when he was a baby, dude. Last time Chris Paul was on the Clippers, like he was like actually a child.
Yeah.
So it's kind of crazy to me, but Chris Paul, like I just checked, Chris Paul's 40 years old, man. Like obviously he's not gonna be like making a genuine impact, like on the court, but he will. I feel like he will be providing that, that wisdom to some of our players and kind of. They call Chris Paul the master of the rules of the NBA.
The point guard.
They say like he knows more about the rules than even the refs do. So he's able to find loopholes, able to bend the rules a little bit here and there, and kind of figure out new ways of going about the game of basketball. Which I think that he will be able to pass that wisdom off to some of our players and some of our youth. I'm of the belief that Shai Gilgeous-Alexander wouldn't be the player he is today without Chris Paul being on OKC and kind of helping him develop into that basketball mind that we see today, and that we see as an MVP. And one of the reasons why I rooted so hard for Shai Gilgeous was because he's a product of the Clippers with Chris Paul and the Los Angeles Clippers. So to see like that product become MVP, become Finals MVP, become a champion, I don't know, made me a little bit happy. Obviously, I'd love to see the Clippers franchise kind of win a championship, but
It was cool to see an extension of that, like
exactly,
find success.
exactly.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, overall, I'm just happy to see Chris Paul in a Clippers jersey again.
100%. And going back to what you were saying, like, that his impact on the court, I really do think that there is. I mean, I believe it was Lawrence Frank touched on it when we made the signing. That there's going to be nights where Chris doesn't play much at all. There's going to be nights where Chris plays a lot. And so I think, his role is going to very much be fluid in terms of the minutes he gets or his impact or what lineups he's playing with. But I do think that there is a real need for what Chris can provide, even in his older age. I mean, look at last year with the Spurs. He played 82 games, played every single game, started for the Spurs. He's still capable. He's still a very capable basketball player. Obviously, a little slower, not as he doesn't have the same juice that he did, 5 years ago, 6 years ago. But he's still, his assist to turnover ratio is insane. I think it's like 6-1 or something like that. I mean, he's super efficient. He doesn't turn the ball over. And, with James shouldering such a heavy load last year in terms of ball handling and being the facilitator, you saw it last year. I mean, and James Harden was incredible last year during the regular season. He really was. But he played a ton of minutes, and you saw towards the end of the year he looked a little bit gassed.
Yeah.
And so to have that, the secondary ball handler off the bench to take a little bit of strain off of James is huge. And I think that there will be games when James, when he's going to rest or when he's not going to be playing as heavy minutes, especially like later on in the season. That's when Chris can really, really be effective. And with the information that Bogdan Bogdanovic was competing in Eurobasket, or is, the Eurobasket tournament that's currently going on, but he ended up rupturing his hamstring. And so Bogdan Bogdanovic, was going to be not necessarily a key piece off the bench, but he was going to be a rotation player for us. I'm sure he'll be back before the end of the season, but I would imagine that he probably doesn't make his return until about halfway through the season with an injury like that. So it's just a little bit.
Question, kind of based off that. How do you feel about NBA players, playing in, playing for their country and playing like in tournaments and games outside of the NBA when, a very large bulk of their income comes from the NBA and. Kind of like if they get injured, I mean, we saw a scare with Luka. We obviously with Bogey. It's just a little bit. Obviously, with Paul George playing for Team USA, kind of had that pretty gruesome injury. Do you feel like it's worth for these players to play? I mean, obviously, again, Kawhi being pulled from Team USA last year and everything. Was that last year or 2 years ago? I think that was last year.
Whatever. I don't even know.
Yeah. How do you feel about, NBA players going to play for their country and kind of adding more miles to their legs?
It's tough because it's definitely a very individual and personal decision. I think that these players, especially, with the European players, there's such a big basketball there's been such a big basketball culture with France and with Serbia, at the forefront of things. Like there's a lot of pride in playing for your home country, and it's not just limited to the European countries too. But I think that there's a lot of pride playing for your country in tournaments like this, and some players do better when they have the off-season reps, and they're able to play competitively in their off seasons and stuff, but there is that inherent risk that you're going to get hurt. And then it gets a little dicey because, okay, you're basically taking a season off from the job that you're being paid more for, because you were injured in the off season. So it's tough to say. I can't really fault players for wanting to do that. but yeah, it's just tough, especially when, I mean, if a player does, if Bogey doesn't get hurt, then we're not even having this conversation, in regards to him. So
Right.
I think there's a risk, and it sucks when they get hurt. But I really can't fault players for wanting to play for their home countries in tournaments like this and stuff like that. So yeah, that's really my take on that. But yeah, going back to what I was saying real quick, with Bogey being out, it does make a little bit of a dent in our rotation, at least until he comes back. So I think that's even more of a responsibility. I mean, obviously they don't play the same position, but that's more of a responsibility for Chris, in terms of just being an able-bodied individual coming off the bench. As it stands right now, it looks like our bench lineup is going to be some iteration of Chris, Paul, Chris Dunn, Derek Jones Jr., Nico Batum, Brook Lopez. Who else do we have coming up? And then, some of our younger guys with Kobe Brown, Jordan Miller, who was waived from his regular contract and then was re-signed to a two-way contract. I'm not sure that our rookies like Kobe Sanders and Yannick are going to get a ton of playing time this year, but those guys kind of fill out the bench. But our starting lineup is probably going to be James, Beal, and we'll talk about the other acquisitions that the Clippers made. But yeah, James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kawhi Leonard, John Collins, and Big Zoo. So, I think that with the Bogey injury, it does definitely help that the Clippers really focused on adding depth to their team this offseason. So I think we'll see how that plays out. But so just getting into the other acquisitions that I don't believe that we covered, and then some of the players that are no longer a part of the Clippers organization. But Norman Powell was traded, and it's funny because this was a trade that a lot of Clipper fans, specifically this trade, were talking about on Twitter for years. Because Norm, I am always going to be rooting for Norm. Was fantastic last year, but he's kind of been a polarizing figure in the Clipper fans' eyes, just in terms of he was a great scorer, but he didn't do a whole lot of anything else.
Yeah,
he hasn't been a great playoff performer consistently over his Clipper tenure. And I think that's a big reason for it, is if the shots aren't falling, he has trouble finding other ways to be successful.
Right.
But it's funny because given that, the people that were kind of more on board with trading Norman Powell, it was always Norm for John Collins. It was like always the theoretical trade that everybody was calling for, and it finally happened. So Norman Powell goes to Miami, which I think he'll be very successful in Miami, whether he comes off the bench or starts. Him and Tyler Hero are both like dynamic scorers, so that's a lot of offensive firepower for them. The third team that got involved was obviously the Jazz, which the Clippers acquired John Collins from the Jazz. I'm not sure, they didn't get a whole lot. I think it was a lot of like salary dumping. I think they got Kyle Anderson and a couple picks or something. But John Collins, who I in the back of my mind, I really wanted to try and get another kind of more traditional power forward in terms of size. And John Collins was one of those guys. And so the Clippers finally have their bigger bodied forward. Kawhi was playing the four a lot of these, the last couple of years. Nico would play the four. Derek Jones would play the four sometimes. But now we have this really athletic, younger, power forward. I think he's, what is he? 20,
I feel like he's like
27. That's still young. I mean, on this team, the oldest team in the NBA.
I know, he's a freaking baby.
Yeah, he's a baby compared to everybody else. Let me see how old John Collins is. He is 20. He's 20 years old. I'm just kidding. No, he's 20. He's 27. Yeah.
Oh, no way. Okay.
Yeah, so he's younger than a lot of I think him and Derek Jones are both 27. So
okay.
Some younger depth for the Clippers, but yeah, I'm actually really stoked to have John Collins. The last athletic four that we had, I mean, Trez was more of a five, but really the last athletic four that the Clippers had in terms of traditional power forwards was Blake.
Yeah.
And so I think this will be really good. A lob threat for James Harden, a lob threat for Chris Paul when Chris Paul's staggering with the starters and stuff. So I think it's great. It's funny because a lot of people are like, John Collins has like some really bad, like, he's got some defensive issues, some glaring defensive issues, or he was playing on a shitty Jazz team. Like, how do we really know how good he is right now?
Mm-hmm.
But I saw a
He was good
metric
on
that
the Hawks.
he was good on the Hawks, and I was looking at this metric that somebody put out where because the Jazz have been such a shit show in terms of like showcasing any sort of talent, they've been tanking
Mm-hmm.
for the last like 3 years. But John Collins point differential when he was on the court was basically, to put it in layman's terms, every time that John Collins was on the floor, the Jazz were winning. And so when he wasn't on the floor, like, I think it was something crazy that the Jazz had only been outscored by like 17 points in every single minute that John Collins was on the floor for the Jazz. It was something crazy for the whole season. So, and they shut him down early. So I don't think that, like, especially last year, John Collins Jazz.
I would say the only issue I have with John Collins is, I mean, you could say that they shut him down, but from me following John Collins the last couple of years, he's extremely injury prone, and I mean, that's the only thing that scares me. Like, if you're getting young players on your team, you're expecting them to be more durable,
available,
more available. Yeah, sure, they can be banged up here and there, but they can play through it, right? Because they're younger, they heal faster, things don't linger as long for them. But with John Collins, I feel like his entire career, he's kind of been injury prone. He's kind of,
true.
Always had like back problems or hamstring problems or something's going on with him where he's not 100%. And that's the only thing that scares me. Even on the Jazz, maybe they were tanking and they just didn't want to play him as much. But I felt like he missed a lot of games just because he was injured or there was something wrong with him. So I would say that's the only thing the only issue I see with John Collins. He is a great player. I believe that he's really going to add a lot to James Harden's game with that lob threat. Along with,
he can stretch the floor a little bit too.
He can stretch the floor. He can hit threes. I do think that he can be a rim protector when he really wants to be. But like I said, I think that just the injuries kind of really, really scare me. I think that with how old our team is, I could see injuries being a problem for us in the near future.
Well, hopefully, yeah. I mean, it already kind of started, with the bogey thing.
Yeah.
And hopefully it doesn't get a whole lot worse than that. I will say, with the depth that the Clippers have this year, I think that they're more prepared for injuries than they were last year. I mentioned it just a couple minutes ago.
You think so this year?
I think that the Clippers are more prepared for injuries this year than they were last year. Yeah. I think, and I talked about it a couple minutes ago, but the Clippers were able to sign Bradley Beal off of the buyout. That was kind of a polarizing move for a lot of Clipper fans. I think, Rola, you're probably kind of on the fence about it.
I actually, I've kind of had a recent discovery. I don't want to say discovery, but a recent
enlightenment.
Enlightenment. That's a great word to use.
I got you.
I think that, and I hate to say this, but last year was probably the first year in a while that Kawhi was healthy, and I believe he still missed a decent chunk of the season at the beginning of the season, just because they wanted to make sure that he was fully healthy before he started playing basketball. And I think for the Clippers, this was kind of Norman Powell's role last season. And which is why I think that he was such an important person to have on the team, was we need a scorer, someone that can pour on the points when Kawhi isn't available, because that seems to be a theme for every season for the Clippers with this guy. And I think Bradley Beal, with us trading away Norman Powell, I think Bradley Beal is going to be that guy for us. We saw Norman Powell be it for us last year. You've seen Reggie Jackson be that for us in prior years. You've seen Lou Will be that for us in prior years. Because, like I said, the theme is Kawhi is going to miss some part of the season, and then we're going to need someone to step up. And I think that can be Bradley Beal for us. Bradley Beal has shown, in his past that he can be a superstar. Obviously, on the Phoenix Suns, He looked like dog shit, and he played like dog shit, and he really was very detrimental to the Suns.
I think everybody was on that Suns team. Like nobody liked each other on that team.
Honestly, I think that the Clippers need to blow everything up. I think that the Suns need to blow everying up even more than the Clippers.
Well, they've kind of started that. The Suns
trading away Kevin Durant. Yeah. I think that Bradley Beal is a huge pickup because without him, I don't know who would step into that role. Obviously, Chris Paul has been that in his prime, but I don't think 40-year-old Chris Paul can come out every single night and ball out. I just checked Bradley Beal's age a little bit ago. He's 32. So I think that is an expectation that is, possible for him. Obviously, James Harden, we expect a lot from him. He's the starting point guard, former MVP, All-Star last year. So, there's still that expectation for him to ball out, but we do need someone else that can help out in the games that James Harden can't really step up. And I think that's going to be Bradley Beal for us.
Yeah, I agree. Do you think, to kind of piggyback off what you're saying, do you feel that Bradley Beal, I'll give you my answer after I hear what you have to say, but do you think that Bradley Beal is a better fit for this Clipper team than Norman Powell was? And it's tough to say because Norman Powell carried the team on his back for a lot of last year.
Yeah.
Had the best scoring year of his career.
Mm-hmm.
But do you feel, Bradley Beal's a much better facilitator than Norm? He's not the scorer that Norm is at this point in time, but he's a better facilitator. I would say that he kind of does a little bit more of the little things than Norm did. Do you feel that he's a better fit specifically next to James Harden than Norman Powell?
Dude, I'm going to be real. I think that they're pretty much Bradley Beal is pretty much going to be stepping into the same role Norman Powell had last season.
Yeah.
I think the only upgrade genuinely is going to be in Bradley Beal's basketball IQ. I think that we're betting that his IQ is a little bit higher than Norman Powell's. And
he's a much better playmaker. I'll give him that.
Yeah, and in that we'll get more opportunities. James Harden will maybe be able to take a little bit of a break here and there. And Bradley Beal can kind of step into that role and mold into more than Norman Powell could. And that's pretty much it. I think that his main role will pretty much be what Norman Powell was.
The same. Yeah. The defense, I would say, is about the same. It's interesting, though, because Ty Lue talked about it. He had an interview with Shannon Sharp very recently. It was a really good interview. Check it out. Ty Lue was very candid talking about, his career and the Clippers, coaching the Clippers and little things like that. But he mentioned, I forget what the question was, but he talked about Bradley Beal's defense. And he said basically something along the lines of Bradley Beal is a good defender if he is engaged. And so I know that hearing that Ty Lue is cognizant of that, I trust Ty Lue to do what he can to kind of bring the best out of Bradley Beal defensively and make sure that he's not just letting him spot up. You have to keep him engaged on offense to allow him to be engaged on defense. And I think that if Bradley Beal can even be an average defender, I think that really helps a lot. So, yeah, because he'll be starting next to James Harden, I would imagine. And so, if both of them, considering that both of them aren't known for their defense, even though I do think James Harden is a underrated post defender specifically for a guard. If they can just both be average, then I think that helps the Clippers out a lot. But aside from those two, the starting lineup, those two being Bradley Beal and John Collins, the starting lineup is pretty much the same. James Harden at the 1, Kawhi at the 3, which Kawhi is going to be playing the 3 for the first time consistently in a while. We'll see how that goes. And then obviously Zoo. With all of these additions, also just to really quickly touch on it, Amir Coffey signed with the Bucks. So Amir Coffey, the brewmaster himself, is no longer a part of the Clippers. Rooting for Amir too.
Big time.
He didn't have a great year last year, but I am rooting for Amir to be successful throughout the rest of his career. He was such a great development story for the Clippers, and he's become a really, really good player, NBA player. But he's out. In terms of the additions from the bench that I didn't talk about, Brook Lopez, I don't believe I might have touched on it last episode, but having that solid, reliable backup center for the first time in a long time. I mean, we don't have to worry about Mason Plumlee or Mo Bamba or Moses Brown or Drew Eubanks. The Clippers' rotation center spot has been suspect, to put it lightly, suspect the last couple of years, and to have a starting caliber center coming off the bench that can stretch the floor. He's older and he's slower of foot, but I mean, he can stretch the floor. He can defend the rim, and he's from North Hollywood, which is cool. So he gets to be back home. So he'll be coming off the bench too, which is huge. But in terms of the starting lineup, that's what we would imagine it's going to be. To touch one more time, to touch on one more thing before we kind of move on. The one thing that I'm really looking for the Clippers to do is, with this added depth, to make sure that the guys that were allowed the Clippers to be successful last year don't kind of get buried away. Specifically, Ivica Zubats. I want to make sure, or I want the Clippers to make sure, because I have no say in this shit. I want the Clippers to make sure
they watch
that. They do watch the pod. I want the Clippers to make sure that Zoo stays a focal point of the offense like he was last year. I mean, we saw the career year that Zoo had last year. I mean, he's become one of the top, in my opinion, easily one of the top 5 centers in the league.
Easily.
His durability and his elevation in offense, and his defense, and he's become a fantastic rebounder. I think he led the league in defensive rebounds last year. To make sure that he continues to grow and to showcase what he can do and be a huge part of this offense and defense, that needs to be big. I don't want Chris guys like. Oh, go ahead.
Can I just what's the word I'm looking for? Can I just say something really quick? Cut you off really quick. I love Zoo, but I could see a world where Brook Lopez takes his starting spot. I only say this because I think that, depending on how Brook looks, he has been, a top level center for a long time.
Champion.
He's a champion. He is capable of really stretching the floor. When you play against a team like the Milwaukee Bucks, and you have Giannis, who is a defensive juggernaut in the paint, and you have a center that can kind of stretch the floor, and on the other side could potentially be able to keep up with Giannis in the paint and kind of add that tall, strong center. And then, like on the other side, be able to kind of pull Giannis from the paint and allow our guards to get in there. I could see, maybe in the playoffs, matchup wise, depending on who we see, I could see Brook Lopez kind of take those minutes from Zoo, because he could add a different level of play style to the entire team. I love Zoo, like I said, but I think that when it comes to the playoffs, and I've said this a lot, I think Zoo is very easy to game plan against, because
less so lately, but I know what you mean.
Yeah, less so lately, because I think that he puts in so much effort that you can't predict and you can't game plan for heart. That's just something, if a player wants something more than everyone else on the team or anyone else on the court, then it is what it is. You can't game plan that Draymond Green is going to hit 6 threes. You know what I mean? You can't game plan for that type of stuff. And that's something where I think Zoo brings, and I think he brought the entirety of last season. He just wanted it more than anyone he saw in front of him. But I think when it comes to straight up matching, I think that Brook Lopez adds a different dimension to the team that Zoo doesn't bring.
I totally agree, and I'm glad you brought that up. So I disagree in the sense that he's gonna be replacing Zoo in the starting lineup. I don't think that that's gonna happen. I think that Zoo's cemented himself as a franchise piece for this team. But I think that, especially because knowing how Ty Lue coaches, and Ty Lue likes to make adjustments and try alternative lineups and stuff like that, I think that there are going to be plenty of times where he'll play Zoo and Brook next to each other, which
with John Collins.
No, I think it'll be in lieu of John Collins in some lineups.
That would kind of be a fire lineup.
I think that there will be times when we see that.
James Harden
Twin
at the
Towers. Yeah, so
tall ass lineup,
a huge lineup. I think that there will be times when we see that, and I think there will be times when Zoo is just like you touched on, Rolla, like he's just he's being targeted. Everybody's switching smalls. Trying to match him up with a guard at the perimeter and leaving him on an island and stuff. I think that there will be times when Brook Lopez will slot in for the more of the minutes at center than Zoo. But I think that it'll all be based on the opposing matchup, and so I think that if anything, it is a luxury to have a big that is a championship center that can stretch the floor. He's still a good rim protector, if not an elite rim protector. So I think that it just adds something that the Clippers really have been lacking for years, like probably all throughout this 2-1-3 era. It's been a mixed bag of dog shit from the backup center position for the Clippers for a long time, and I feel a lot more comfortable with just having Brook Lopez as an option to come off the bench. So I think that's huge.
Right.
For the Clippers. But to go back to my original point, I just want to make sure that guys like Zoo and Chris Dunn and Derek Jones and even Nico Batum in some situations don't get buried too far in the rotation just so that we can give Bradley Beal and John Collins like a huge amount of minutes. I want to make sure that we're incorporating the guys. I mean, Chris Dunn was the best perimeter last year, one of the best perimeter defenders I've ever seen for the Clippers. Like I think that you think of Pat Bevs and Luke Mbamutes and guys like that. He's up there with those players in terms of just like game-changing individual defense. What are you laughing at?
Luke Mbamute.
Dude, he was like when Luke was playing for the Clippers and he was starting, dude, he was the first guy in a long time up to that point that I'd seen like, okay, we have our like LeBron KD stopper. Like he was guarding those guys.
I just wasn't expecting that name, dude.
I had to dust that one off. But Chris Dunn has been up there with those guys in terms of defense, and so I want to make sure that those guys still have a valuable place on this team and get their consistent minutes. So it's going to be a little bit tough. This is going to be a challenging year for Ty Lue to manage everybody's minutes. But I think if there's one coach in the league that can do that and can get creative with the lineups, I think it's Ty Lue. I mean, I'm still very much a Ty Lue fan, and just in terms of what he's able to do as a coach. But yeah, I'm really excited to see this team play. I've had to temper my expectations a little bit as a Clipper fan over the course of the last couple of years. I'm not out here saying that we're going to win a championship. In fact, I'm not expecting it. But I do think that just with this group of guys that kind of fits a little bit more, and there's a lot of guys that have a lot to prove, and then just the fact that Chris Paul's back, I think it's just going to be a fun year. Now that leads us into what I want to talk about next, because prior to a couple of weeks ago, or about a week ago, I was so content, so happy. I was like, okay, we got Chris Paul back. We're going to have a fun team. I don't care about the championship aspirations. Obviously, they're going to compete for a championship, but I'm just going to have fun this year. No drama. I get to watch all my old head, basketball players that I've been watching like for the last 7-8 years play for my team. It'll be a fun, just like everybody's calling them the Unction. Like there was a good vibe.
Yeah.
And then, in true Clipper fashion, something fucking happens where the Clippers fans just can't be happy. They just they have to be knocked down a peg. Clipper fans always have to have their happiness nerfed for whatever fucking reason, and it bums me out. But if you don't know what I'm talking about already, basically to sum it up, there was this individual, Pablo Torre, who worked for ESPN for a while. He has his own podcast now. He's like an investigative journalist, I guess is the best way to put it. But his whole thing is he dives deep onto, questionable things, in the sports front offices, and he tries to uncover the truth or whatever. And so he did a little deep dive, or not a little deep dive, he did a very extensive deep dive into a situation with the Clippers front office, Steve Ballmer, particularly, that involved basically the allegation was that Steve Ballmer had invested a large sum of money in this company called Aspiration. If you guys, I remember it throughout the course of the last couple of years, but they were this like eco-friendly, like it was like this eco-friendly initiative that they were putting through. They were a huge sponsor for the stadium and building Intuit Dome and having the Intuit Dome achieve their like low carbon footprint or whatever whatever like the objective was with that. But they ended up being this fraudulent company, and Ballmer invested a large sum of money in them. And then, to make matters even worse, he uncovered that Kawhi Leonard, who was acting under an LLC, KL2 Aspire LLC, was receiving payments that pretty much mirrored the investment that Steve Ballmer put into this company, and it just looked really fishy. Basically, they're being accused of circumventing the salary cap to try and pay Kawhi Leonard more money. Specifically in 2021, this is a common misconception with the situation. Let's throw 2019 when Kawhi Leonard first signed with the Clippers out the window, because that was a completely different situation. The Clippers, to my understanding, acquired him in 2019 legally. But in 2021, when he was due for a contract extension, that was when everything got a little bit dicey. Right. I probably botched that entire like situation in terms of explanation, but that's what I was able to extrapolate from the situation. Right. Rola, you probably have a better understanding of this situation. Let me hear your take on that.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I understand the situation went as. I think that it is unfortunate. I don't know what the NBA is going to do investigation wise. But, to have that be done and, for Steve Ballmer to have put in so much money, I don't know what the investment was on, other billionaires or whoever invested in that company at Aspiration. But from what I saw, it seemed like Steve Ballmer had invested the largest sum of money into the company. And for Kawhi during that contract negotiation area to have also signed with Aspiration and in his contract to receive a very large sum of money.
And it was under the guise of a no-show job, right? So he didn't have to do anything.
Well, I think it was almost like he was signing to like advertise or kind of be like the face or the spokesperson for Aspiration for about $30 million, which would make sense if he actually did anything. But what was uncovered was Kawhi he never did anything regarding this company. He never mentioned it on his he hasn't mentioned anything on his Twitter. I believe the last post on his Twitter is of Obama.
Like a hoverboard or something? Like it was like a ripstick or some shit.
So yeah, he's had like, so you don't see anything on it. I don't even know if he has an Instagram. You don't see anything on his Twitter.
He probably has like a Pinterest.
Yeah, you don't see any commercials about it. So when Pablo Torre looked into it, there was nothing regarding Kawhi Leonard or anything Kawhi Leonard and the Aspiration that came up in, advertisement or marketing or anything. And so that's where the no-show comes in, is they are paying Kawhi Leonard $28 million for pretty much nothing.
His ass, yeah.
And so when they look into that and they look into the largest investor of the company, Steve Ballmer,
See, I don't think he was the largest investor though, and we can talk about that in a sec, but he came out and kind of tried to clear the air with Ramona Shelburne on ESPN.
Right.
And I think he said that he wasn't the largest investor.
Okay. Yeah. So I think it's just the fact that, Kawhi is getting paid $30 million. He signed for this contract for Aspiration during the Clippers contract negotiations. Steve Ballmer had invested a large sum into that company. So it makes it seem like Steve Ballmer is trying to like take shortcut or trying to tiptoe around the the salary cap situation and kind of pay Kawhi Leonard a little bit more to keep him on the Clippers. Obviously, business wise, to have Kawhi on the Clippers and with the new Intuit Dome and everything, it just makes sense for a billionaire to invest money into Kawhi, right? So I think the issue is that Steve Ballmer is almost like using his money to get ahead, and that's what people really don't appreciate. That there was that interview Steve Ballmer did with Ramona Shelburne, where he basically said that he got conned. He didn't know anything about aspiration. That these people kind of just convinced him into investing in this company, and then they just didn't do what they promised, or they didn't do this, that, and the third. And I think what a lot of people find hard to believe is, how someone invests that much money into a company, and someone like
as successful as Ballmer,
major businessman like Steve Ballmer invests into a company, and he doesn't see like those red flags. Maybe they did do a great job of really trying to show that they were a legit company trying to do legit things, but to kind of swindle him and Kawhi and I'm assuming a bunch of other people, that he had look into these contracts, look into this, that, and the third, of everyone have been swindled. Find it a little bit hard to believe. Obviously, they're going to do their investigation and figure out what exactly happened. But as a Clipper fan, it kind of sucks to see that there is fraudulent activity going on potentially, especially after everything that we've been through, how difficult it was to get Kawhi, how many steps we've taken forward as a franchise with Intuit Dome and with the fan base and with the players that we received. So to have all that happen and then almost feel like it was all fake or we cheated to get there, kind of feels a little weird to me.
It sucks. And Ballmer, we'll see, we'll see how valid Ballmer's explanation is once the verdict comes out. But Ballmer was explaining to Ramona Shelburne that he feels from his side of things, he feels embarrassed and ashamed that he didn't catch those the red flags, and he apologized to the fans and to the employees of the company and stuff like that. And he was basically saying that he made the deal with Aspiration, and then introduced Aspiration to Kawhi, and the rest was history. They didn't. He's claiming that he didn't have any influence in Kawhi's signing the deal, making that separate deal with Aspiration or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a lot of. I mean, obviously it's a lot of hearsay, and we won't know probably for a while. This is going to be an investigation that takes a long time. And the Clippers issued a statement. They said neither Ballmer nor the Clippers circumvented the salary cap or engaged in any misconduct related to Aspiration. Any contrary assertion is provably false, those are big words, to claim that it is provably false. The team ended its relationship with Aspiration years ago during the 2022-23 season when Aspiration defaulted on its obligations. Neither the Clippers nor Ballmer was aware of any improper activity by Aspiration or its co-founder until after the government instituted its investigation. The team and Mr. Ballmer stand ready to assist law enforcement in any way they can. So really, from the Clippers side of things, Ballmer, from the organization, whatever, it seems like they're ready to cooperate in terms of the investigation. When Ballmer was asked by Ramona Shelburne, he said that he encourages the league to look into this. So, I mean, those are big claims, and, I guess it gives me hope that he doesn't feel that anything will come of this. But then at the end of the day, the thing that you got to think about is, and you touched upon it, Rola, it is frustrating to know that, Ballmer's become this darling, in terms of owners, become this darling of the league. He cares, and he garners a lot of respect from his peers, and he's put all of this money and care and passion into this team. But at the end of the day, I think we have to remember that, I mean, this is just my opinion, and I don't know if you share the same sentiment, but like billionaires to accrue that amount of wealth, there's always going to be something unethical.
Yeah, always.
And we'll see the extent of this situation, but it's a sobering fact to see, like, to even consider, like, there was some sketchy shit going down, or there was some like circumvention of the rules, or it's just at the end of the day, that's business at that level of wealth, and it sucks, and the whole thing sucks. And we'll see if the Clippers are found guilty of what they're being accused of. I would imagine that there's going to be some severe punishment. I mean, everybody talks about, there was this, I think his name is Joe Smith, played for the Minnesota Timberwolves. This was years ago. There's a similar situation that there was more of a smoking gun with that, where there were documents that were uncovered that said in black and white, this happened. And so it was easier for them to come to a verdict on that. But basically, they were stripped of 5 first-round picks for 5 straight years and then had to pay $30 million. So, I mean, I don't know if it's going to be anything like that. It's a little bit tough because
that would be pretty devastating for us.
It would be very devastating for the Clippers that really, really need first-round picks.
Yeah.
I mean, we're 2 years removed from probably a rebuild or a retooling, when Kawhi's off the books and Harden's off the books and stuff like that. So that would be devastating. But the thing that there's a lot of pieces to consider with this, because, I'm of the opinion that Adam Silver is very much a dollar sign commissioner. He wants to do what's best financially for the league. If he puts the hammer down on someone like Ballmer, who's been a really good like spokesperson for the league, and he's brought the league a lot of revenue,
right?
Then obviously that wouldn't be the financial move to make if you're thinking about financial welfare of the league. It would be a tough decision. Adam Silver, ball's in his court. Ball's in Adam Silver's court. We'll see what the investigation brings about. But I just wanted to say that the worst thing, and someone said this on Twitter, and I cannot agree more. The worst thing to come out of this situation so far for Clipper fans has been the fucking Laker fans that have come out of the woodworks. And just like, because obviously, like, there's always going to be the little brother thing. Laker fans, like, and I'm not trying to talk shit on Laker fans, but it's just been the relationship between Laker fans and Clipper fans, where it's anytime there's some dirt to be thrown on the Clippers name, even when it's completely unwarranted or completely uncalled for, the Laker fans are going to do it. And now it's just like a kid in a candy shop. Because now there's like maybe a legitimate reason to give shit to the Clippers as an organization. And so that I've been hearing a ton of shit.
There's always going to be that hatred for anything regarding Kawhi from the Lakers, because they felt like they lost. Yeah, they felt like they lost to us getting Kawhi. And so like they can't accept that happened genuinely. And so, like,
which is stupid, because in 2019 that's not even in question. The signing of Kawhi, the initial signing of Kawhi, was not even in the question.
Yeah, so they're always going to be Kawhi haters. They're always going to be Clippers haters. They're always going to have something to say when it comes to anything regarding Kawhi, which is always going to be unfortunate for him. The Lakers are the largest fan base in the NBA, so you're always going to hear noise, and there's always going to be that microscope on the Clippers. Which is why I believe that, maybe that was why Pablo Torre went so deep into this investigation. And maybe that's just because he knew that when this breaks, it'll be such a big thing, and Laker fan base will be able to carry the news to make it bigger or make it more than what it is.
It could be. In terms of Pablo Torre, if this whole thing goes to shit for him and the Clippers come out scot-free, I would not be surprised if Ballmer countersues or something like that, which is like, that is the last person that you want to go to war with, like, financially.
I think also like Mark Cuban, I don't know if you saw on Twitter, he had something to say also, and he was
on Pablo's show like a couple days later. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
To talk about it.
I didn't get to watch it, but I saw on Twitter he was basically saying that he was on Steve Ballmer's side on this whole situation, because I don't know, like from a billionaire perspective, he sees how another billionaire can get swindled on this situation. So I don't know. I guess we'll see.
It's just gross. The whole thing is fucking gross.
Yeah, it's just. I have a hard time trusting billionaires, so that's just the issue. When you have that much money, it's not hard to kind of pay your way to success.
the thing that makes me so sad about the situation, or like upset, I guess, is like if the Clippers come out of this fine, which a lot of media heads are saying that they believe will happen, just because for one reason or the next, whether it just be Adam
Hmm.
Silver not wanting to risk the financial loss of, you know, putting the hammer down on the Clippers or putting the hammer down on Steve Ballmer,
Hmm.
that there's like if the Clippers garner any success this year, everybody's just going to be talking about, oh, they're cheaters, like they shouldn't even be in
Yeah.
this position and stuff like that. So it's like,
Yeah.
dude, we can't, like, Clipper fans just can't have nice things, man. It
No, never,
sucks.
dude.
It sucks. I mean,
Never.
granted, like we're always gonna have to deal with the outside noise and stuff. So what people say about
Hmm.
the Clippers doesn't really matter much, especially if the Clippers come out of this okay. But it's another thing where it's like the Clippers have to deal with this new mess. I mean, just with Kawhi Leonard alone, there's been scandals, over the last couple
Yeah.
of years, going all the way back to San Antonio Spurs and stuff like that. And it's just, yeah, it's unfortunate, and I feel for the Clipper fandom, myself and you included, like just having to deal with this again and not being able
Hmm.
to enjoy hoops and like enjoy the success of their team. I don't know. It's just the whole thing sucks, and we'll see what happens. Like I said, I don't think that there's going to be a verdict with this anytime soon, which also sucks because it's going to be in the back of our minds, throughout most of the season, I would imagine. But I guess I trust the league to do their due diligence. Um, yeah, I don't know. Did you have any
I
final
agree.
statements about this
No,
this
dude.
mess of a
I'm kind of,
situation?
dude. I'm already kind of over it. I mean, it is what it is. The NBA is gonna make their decision, and if we get fucked for it, then we get fucked. I mean, yeah, it'll be devastating for us, but it is what it is. Hopefully nothing happens. But
And with the Clippers, like also with the Clippers having an All Star game in Intuit Dome this year, and then with the Olympics being housed at Intuit Dome in 3 years,
mhm.
it's like this could have some. I mean, I don't know if they strip. I would imagine that. I don't think it'll get to that point. We'll see. I don't
No,
know, but there's just a
I don't
lot of
think so.
moving parts with this situation, um, and we will see. I mean, when the news
Yeah.
drops, obviously we'll be here to talk about it. But yeah, I mean, aside from that, we're happy that the Clippers are pretty healthy. Besides Bogey going into this season, I mean,
Yeah.
that's the shitty thing is there's a lot to be happy about, like from a Clippers fan perspective going into the season, and the vibes were so good prior to this.
Yeah.
Like Lawrence Frank did a really bang up job, like filling the. His legacy was kind of on the line going into this offseason, and I think that he kind of did what he needed to do. He cooked for about 2 weeks straight, just in terms of
And
bringing
dude,
in.
I honestly don't understand why his legacy was on the line. I think he's done everything that he's needed to do when it comes to building a team.
Yeah, I don't
Anytime,
know. There's been
anytime there
like the
was,
John Wall situation and letting Hartenstein
yeah,
go
but
and
like
bringing in Aaron Gordon.
the thing is
Fair
everyone
point.
freaking makes mistakes. We've had, I feel like we had a championship caliber team for like 5, 6 years, dude.
Yeah,
And like when they get in, like that's completely out of his control. When players get
yeah,
injured, he's put together championship level teams. They just haven't gotten there,
haven't worked.
and
Yeah, no,
that's out of his hands.
that's a great point. But yeah, I mean, he did a really good job. Built this really fun, interesting, older but fun team that with a lot to prove. He brought back
Hmm.
one of the biggest fan favorites, in Clipper history, to finish out his career and retire a Clipper. So it just sucks from that perspective to like have this black cloud above the franchise's heads
Hmm.
during the right before a season that should have been really fun, and I think it still will be. But it's just like one thing that the Clippers organization has to deal with
Yeah.
until a verdict comes out. But I mean, I'm sure that when the season starts, I'll be more invested, and like everything in this league, when as time goes by, things just get, for better or for worse, just kind of pushed to the back burner, and people don't talk about it as much. So I don't know. Just from a Clipper team standpoint, I'm excited for the season, I guess.
Yeah, me too. should be a fun season. You know, I'm really gonna try to go to Chris Paul, like that first game with Chris Paul. I think. Well, they haven't come out with the schedule yet, but
I think they have.
It's at,
Yeah, I think they
have
have.
they?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, then yeah.
We can talk about
I'm
that on next episode, but the Clippers
yeah.
start out the season on a pretty like the competition to start the season for the Clippers isn't super stiff, and I think the Clippers can really get off to a good start here for the first 10 or 11 games to start the season.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I'm probably gonna try to go to the first Chris Paul game, just because I mean it's Chris Paul and
100%.
it's gonna be a cool season seeing him back in the Clippers uniform.
Yeah, there's a lot to be. Guys, sorry we we brought the temperature down here but I think that this is something that needs to be talked about, and we wanted to kind of give our 2 cents on it. But I think bottom line, pushing all of that to the side, pushing all of that to the back burner. I'm sure that a lot of Clipper fans are really excited, us included, are really excited to get this season going. I think there's about 40 more days until the season starts, or 40 more days till training camp. No, training camp starts in less than that. But the season's right around the corner. And so we will have a lot to talk about, I'm sure. Especially if any verdict comes out with this situation over the course of the next couple of weeks. But I think that pretty much does it for this episode of the Clip Service Pod. It's been a while, guys, so we had to do a little bit of a catch up, but we're going to get right back on track and bring you guys the Clipper news that you so desperately need. And we'll be here for all of that. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. As Rola said up top, you can find us on Spotify, Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, and Deezer. You can check us out on YouTube. Get at us on Twitter and on Instagram at Clip Service Pod. Let us know what you guys think about this whole situation. Let us know what you think about this new Clipper team and what's at stake. We want to hear all of it. We want to hear all the takes. We'll probably start getting back into the sweepstakes stuff. We'll get back into the hot take, shot take. We'll get back into our normal routine. So we appreciate you guys for listening. We appreciate you guys for bearing with us. And let's go Clips.